Hello, everyone. If you're just logging in this morning, if you would be so kind to chat in the chat box and make sure that you can hear me. Just want to make sure everything's working with audio because we're going to start in about 1 minute or less. I believe the chat box on your bottom right, if you can just make sure that you type in there if you can hear me. Okay, I hear them coming in, so that means audio is good, and I like to start on time, so it's 11 a.m. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before I go into the presentation, I just want to make sure I start with a story. This story is going to be a personal story about myself at the age of 16. Many of my peers at the age of 16 were getting their first car, and they were given from their parents, and I was kind of jealous. But we had in our family an old Lincoln Town Car, and I heard my parents talking about selling it. And I said, wait a second, aren't you going to give it to me? Why can't I get that car? Well, they talked about it, and they said they would sell it to me. So they sold it to me for $5,000. On top of that, they actually charged me interest of 10%. And when I looked at that and I looked at the numbers, I said, this is going to take me a few years to pay off based on the monthly payment at that high interest rate. I don't want to pay that for a few years. So I thought, why don't I pay that off sooner? So I got side jobs. I shoveled driveways. I helped family and friends. And I paid that off within a year because of that super high interest rate. Now, I didn't like it when I heard about my parents selling me that car at 10% interest. But today, I value that because it taught me a lesson on interest and debt and how to control my cash flow. And because of those lessons at an early age, it really propelled me in my career and what I do today. Why do I start about a lesson of me in an old Lincoln Town Car and paying interest? Well, that lesson helped me, and today we're going to hopefully help you take control of your cash and eliminate the debt that you have. As some of you have put on there that you can hear me loud and clear. If you have questions throughout the presentations, please put that in there. Again, I'm not going to give anyone specific advice. We're going to talk high level about some topics and hopefully change the thought process on how you feel about money and make some enhancements in your personal finances to increase your cash flow. And if you have debt, to eliminate debt. We are doing this presentation with SOFA, Society for Financial Awareness, in partnership with Network. Network cares about their employees. That is why they're having me talk to you today. They want to make sure that their employees are not only happy at their work, but make sure their overall financial plan is in a good place. They offer you benefits through 401k. They offer you free money by putting money into a 401k, and we want to make sure we take advantage of that. But today they have me just high level educating on cash flow, eliminating debt, and give you some good pointers. So I'm so happy to see so many of you on this morning, and I hope you find this information as beneficial as possible. So I am going to open up the presentation, and you should see the slide in about 2 seconds from SOFA. Let's see here. Here we are. So taking control of your cash and eliminating debt. Again, my name is Jordan Flowers. I'm a financial advisor by day, but I love educating people through SOFA, a not-for-profit agency. Hopefully we can give you some valuable information. Just a little bit about SOFA. It's nationwide. They have representatives all around the nation really to help educate people. When you went to school, they didn't teach you on budgeting usually. They didn't teach you on some simple cash flow management. You learn algebra, but these cash flow management strategies can really help you over the lifetime. And I want to make sure we educate you on these strategies because it's important, especially the sooner you start. So we're going to go over the presentation again. Non-for-profit, we're not here to sell anything. We're not here to do anything besides educate you. And hopefully, if you've got some topics, you can make personal applications. And if there's anything that maybe is more detailed that you would like to talk to me about, at the end of the presentation, you can kind of request a time for us to talk on a more private level. So what is happiness to you? It's in making informed decisions. It may be buying something, it may be spending time with your family, but in my personal opinion, it's not just about money, but it is about just enjoying life and having that inner happiness. Now, money can help you have happiness, but money does not buy you happiness by any means. We want to make sure that we control our happiness and not have money stress us out or dictate if we have money, we're happy. If we don't have money, we're not happy. Because I know a lot of people that have a lot of money, but they're not the happiest people. And I know a lot of people that don't have a lot of wealth, but they're very happy. So money obviously does not decide our happiness. When you look at your lifestyle and kind of where you spend money on, that we all have them, but there's wants. We see a flashy object on TV, or we want this new product or latest phone maybe, and then there's needs. What do we really need? Do we need to go to the 5-star restaurant, or are we okay with cooking, at home? Now, lately we don't really go out to dinner because of the whole pandemic, but when it comes to needs and wants, you as an individual and as a family really should decide where you fall within that. Because, in our lifestyles, we might want a lot of things, but that want and that object or what we get doesn't define our happiness and can ultimately hurt our long-term happiness if not budgeted correctly. So you want to make sure that you establish what you need and what you want. A lot of times when we buy as individuals, it's not because it's logical, it's not because we need it, it's because of emotion. I'm guilty of it too. I'm sure many of you have been on Amazon and at one click and you purchased that item and you weren't even thinking about that item. And that item comes in, you like it for a day or two or a week or two, and then you kind of forget about it. And then the next item comes up and you click. Or in the grocery store, there's a reason why they put those candies and those little objects right as you check out. Because human nature, we're emotional. Oh, I like that Snickers, or I like that magazine, whatever it is. We add to our total purchase. Is it a need? Probably not. But we are emotional as human beings, and we want to make sure that, if we are making decisions and making purchases, we look at it, is it really needed or is it a want? Like it mentions here, we might think that object or that Amazon purchase might make us happy, and it may for a day or two, but is it going to give you long-term happiness? Is it going to help you over the long term retire sooner or be in a better place financially? Usually the item loses value over time for many people, and then they look for the next item and they go on and on and on. Now, I'm not a big car guy, okay? So I don't mean to offend anyone that loves cars, that might be your hobby. But to me, a car gets you from point A to point B. And then the very beginning, I talked about that Lincoln Town Car. I would still have that car today if it didn't break down on me and when I was driving down the highway. But I have a second car, and I have that for the last 12 years, and I'm not going to buy another car until that car breaks down because it's paid off. It just gets me to point A to point B in a safe manner. Now, some of us might see those car commercials, and I see them too. Oh, I would like that car, or I'd like this car. But realistically, is it a need or is it a want? Do we always look for the next shiny object, or are we content with what we have currently? Make sure that we're not buying always due to emotions. So changing your perspective, okay? When it comes to money, when it comes to life, you are not defined by your bank account. You're defined by your friends, your family, having a purpose in life. And we want to make sure that people don't, think of themselves based on their net worth. Net worth is important, okay? We need to make sure we keep on growing that over time. But you as an individual are defined by the choices you make, the relationships you make, and not by the amount of money that's in your bank account. So change your perspective. Again, we always kind of, I think as humans, get a little jealous when we see someone driving something new or they have a new object, but that doesn't define that person, and it definitely does not define you. So sometimes it takes a change of perspective when you look at your own finances and as an individual. You shouldn't live in fear of your finances. Now, you guys all have good jobs, right? You're with networking, you got consistent good employment. You're very fortunate. Many people don't have that employment right now. Many people are struggling because of the pandemic. So consider yourself very fortunate. But a lot of people realize that your financial dealings, you are ultimately in control of, even though it maybe not feel like it. You can control your expenses. You can control your savings. Your earnings are going to probably increase over time by doing the good work. But you make sure that you control how much you take in and how much you spend. Because if you look at those two numbers, if you're taking in X amount, but you're spending Y amount, that's not a good place. Doesn't matter what job or what position you are, if you are taking in this amount, X, but you're spending Y, that's going to really help you over the long term create a solid financial future. So you're not going to be tied to working for a lot longer. You're not going to be tied to your finances or getting out of that hamster wheel of debt, which we're going to go into in a little bit. But I want to tell you today that you have control. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It matters how much you spend. Okay, that is the key factor. As you build up your self-worth and a positive attitude about yourself, it'll just help you emotionally, it'll help you physically, and it'll help you have a better quality of life so that you're not thinking negatively because I don't have X amount of dollars. You'd be surprised when people come into my office. Sometimes they're like, I know I'm not a multimillionaire, I didn't get there. That number means nothing. What matters is, can you live the lifestyle that you want to live and enjoy meaningful relationships? It's not a dollar amount, so don't think of it that way. At the very bottom there, it says there's no point in waiting for your situation to improve. Today, I would love for each and every one of you to take control, to tackle this obstacle, to look at your budget, to see where you can improve in your financial situation. Because information is great, but application of this information is going to be even better and going to put you in a better place. So, like I said, what makes you happy? The best things in life, they say, are free. A true story, the last few weeks, a lot of my personal financial clients have gone homeless. Not because they ran out of money, but because what makes them happy is traveling in their RV. And they have sold their homes and they're living their dream life and they're going to national parks, they're enjoying nature, and that's free. And they don't know where they're going to be in the next 3 months because they're just going to kind of play it by ear, see how the pandemic goes. But to them, that brings them happiness. Now, everyone's a little bit different, but I want to make sure that you know that you control your own happiness. And circumstances come and go. We all can't predict, our health and life circumstances, but you can control how you react to them, how you adjust to things that come in your way. And if there's a bad thing, I'm not going to say life is always perfect, but when bad obstacles come up, you control your attitude towards them. And you can sometimes use that as a learning thing to kind of take a step up and kind of improve in your overall financial future and your life future, and take it as a learning lesson. So make sure that you control if you are or not happiness. But ultimately, when it comes to having financial success, when it comes to developing meaningful relationships, it's hard work. It takes time. It takes sacrifice. And this is something that there is no substitute for. There is no silver bullet in my mind that gets you a wealthy, that gets you good friendships, has a good marriage, good relationships. All those relationships and money, it takes hard work. It takes time to nurture. And like it says there from Colin Powell, you have to learn from your failure. Okay? I heard this analogy once and I just love it. It's saying, if you bat 200 in the major leagues, you're out, or you're not even in the major leagues in baseball. But if you bat 250, you're making millions of dollars over your career. That little percentage increases your overall net worth. But in order to hit or get to that 250, you got to at least go up to bat. You got to swing. You got to take chances. And 75% of the time, you're not going to succeed by those statistics. But that 25% of the time you hit the ball in the right place, that can make the difference. So learn from your failures, keep on swinging in life, and over time that'll compound and it's going to put you in a good place. But you got to get up to bat. You got to swing, and you got to put in the hard work and make sacrifices. Now, there is a balance. You don't need to sacrifice everything where you can't go out to eat and you're eating ramen noodles day in, day out, right? You got to enjoy life, because as we see in this pandemic, life can be precious. Life is fragile. I don't want you to sacrifice your whole life and then, God forbid, you get sick and you don't get to enjoy the retirement to your fullest. So be balanced about it, but see what truly makes you happy and spend the money using that to really benefit you and your families. So like I kind of mentioned, we want to take control. Before we set out and taking control, we need to have a goal and make sure that we execute that goal. Now, they say statistically, if you put a goal down in writing, you're 10 times more likely to accomplish that goal. They say it about New Year's resolutions. Oh, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to do this. Well, 10 times you're more likely to do whatever that is if you put it in writing. You need to make sure that you put your budget in writing, your wants, your needs, put it in writing so that you can make sure that you can achieve your goal. And it's not just up here. Put it down on paper so you can be accountable, have your spouse be accountable with you, have your family be accountable to make sure that you're always on the right path. Make sure it says there to find someone who's on the path that you want to pursue and have a conversation with. You know, instead of going through all the trials of life and failing and getting up again, maybe you see someone that you kind of, I wouldn't say idol, but you respect. Maybe you see the financial success that they've had, and maybe you can take a shortcut. Maybe you can ask them, what did you do to find that financial success? How did you do it? What steps did you take? And they might tell you their failures, you know, how many times they swung and they missed. But learning from their failures and talking to them can really help propel you over that learning curve and get you maybe in a better place. Like I meant in the third checkbox there, it says following a well-defined path. You know, you need to have a path. You need to create that accountability, because it might be in here, but if you don't put it on paper and nobody's second checking that, or you're not checking that, then you might not be going in the right direction. I know my wife and I, she hates doing this thing called a budget, and I'm sure we all don't like doing it. But every quarter we look at our expenses. We look at how much we spend and where we spend it at, and we reevaluate, did we really need to do that? Can we cut back on here? It was a few years ago, actually, that we looked at our budget and looked at Comcast, and I looked at the TV programs. I'm like, I only watch live sports here and there, okay? And I'm like, man, I'm paying that much money to watch live sports here and there. I'm just going to cut the cable cost and save me $100 some bucks a month, which is $1,200 for the year, over 4, 5, 20 years. That's a lot of money that we can use to other areas. Now, my wife, she still loves her Spotify, that extra $10 a month. And even though I try to get her, hey, music can be free, she still wants to pay that $10, and that's okay. But we want to reevaluate and see, hey, maybe there's a subscription, or maybe it's cable, or maybe there's an expense that we have reoccurring, or that we see a lot. Maybe it's Amazon that we can really look at and say, hey, maybe we want to weed that out, not spend as much. And those few $100s every single month can go a long way if you invest it properly. So make sure we have a plan and make sure we're accountable on that. But we can't change our lives overnight. I don't want you to leave this webinar and think, okay, everything's going to change tomorrow. It's just not realistic. Everything in life takes time. We want to start with baby steps. We want to make small changes and then build upon those small changes month by month, day by day. So that when we look at things a year or two out, wow, that's a lot of extra cash flow that we have actually put into investments. Maybe we're not maximizing the free money that network has given you through your 401k. Maybe that can be a goal to kind of put as much as we can to take advantage of that free money, because no one else is going to give you free money, but your employer through network is offering that. Take advantage of the programs they have, because they want to make sure you're in a good place for retirement in the future. So when we develop your plan, we need to develop what is your spending assessment, or I call it in my own words, a lifestyle fund. What do you really need, not want, but need to live your lifestyle? Now, once you establish that need fund or that lifestyle account, I still want you to have a separate account when I do this with my clients, and have your want account, okay, your want budget. Maybe it's a vacation, maybe it's a new car, maybe it's something that you've been saving up for. But once you establish kind of your base, what you need, then you can see, hey, maybe I can save up over time to that want category, and then make that purchase. Because I think we live in an age where everything's so easy. We have that little plastic credit card where we can just swipe. We can tap on a Amazon buy now, and it makes it so easy for us to make purchases. But making those purchases before we are ready could ultimately hurt our long-term financial growth and financial plan. So maybe I'll give you another story about myself. I think this, not sure the age exactly, but growing up, I really wanted that Nintendo 64. And I was just telling my parents, I want it. My friends have it. Can I please get it? And my parents said, you can get it, but you need to rake all the leaves. You need to do the landscaping. You need to do this chore. And once all that's done, then you can get it. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a lot of work. But for that week or two, I worked after school till night for 2 weeks. I got it all done. I busted my butt. And then I got the N64. Maybe when it comes to the financing, maybe we say, hey, we want this item, but maybe we got to cut back on this, and this. So in a few weeks or a few months or a few years, we can make that purchase and really feel good about that purchase and know that we can afford it, not just rush to swipe a credit card and then we're going to stuck with interest and having a negative effect in your financial plan. Make sure you discuss what you're spending and make sure that you're open communication with your family. Like it mentions there, track everything. There's apps out there. I'm not promoting any one company. There's Mint, there's other apps out there that can track your spending. Make sure you know how you're spending it and where the money's going, because you can't make changes unless you know the numbers. You need short-term goals and you need long-term goals. If you have too many long-term goals, you're not going to have that, what do I like to call it? You're not going to have that little boost every time you hit a goal because it's going to be too long. You need short-term goals in your budget, maybe bi-weekly or daily or monthly. Maybe it's the Starbucks coffee you have 6 days a week. Maybe you make it 2 days a week. Maybe it's other hobbies or things that you do that you maybe cut back on. Do small, and then over time, you can hit your long-term goals. And then you need to review your plan. Now, I'm not saying we want to look at this every day or every week, but my wife and I do it every quarter. For you and your family, it might be every few months, every 6 months, at least once a year, if not sooner, to evaluate where you're spending and kind of how you can make enhancements in your overall plan. Now, the material we had through SOFA says to build an emergency fund. There is things that come up that we cannot prepare for. We cannot prepare for this coronavirus. Some of us, or some of the people, I should say, not in this webinar, but across the country, lost their jobs and they got in a bad financial situation. That's why there's stimulus and things going out there to keep people afloat. They're letting unemployment go longer. You need to make sure that you do have an emergency fund. The material says 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. My personal opinion, okay, everyone's a little bit different, but I like having close to 3 months or so of emergency expenses. The reason why, even though emergencies can happen, if God forbid, you have a medical emergency, these hospitals and whatever may come up that you needed procedures on, they will finance you usually at 0% for years before you pay that off. So you don't need to have that lump sum cash to pay off those medical claims. And sometimes, depending on, maybe it's a child that has a medical emergency, you might want to look at the hospital. There could be different programs out there that can actually pay for your child's medical emergency if that does arise. Now, this slide was created before the pandemic, so it's not 100% up to date. And you could probably tell because it says seek conservative saving vehicles that keep pace with inflation. I'm going to tell you today, there is no conservative vehicles, or very little conservative vehicles that are 3 months liquid that can even keep up with inflation. CDs right now, I like to call certificates of disappointment. The little bit you make, you got to pay taxes on, and it doesn't even keep up with inflation. As you've seen in your checking and savings accounts, you're not making any money, maybe 5 cents for the year. It's kind of pathetic. So that's why I tend to have a little bit less in emergency funds, so you can have that money work harder for you. Maybe you're allocating that more to your 401k and getting that money growing for you. Maybe you're allocating that if you have some debt to your debt to make sure that that debt goes down. Or maybe you're allocating it to your home mortgage. After you hit your 401k contribution max, maybe you're putting to pay off your mortgage sooner. But I like to have a little bit less on emergency savings because any money you have in checking and saving is quite frankly losing money to inflation at this time and point. But again, you do need to pay bills, you need some liquidity, but I just wouldn't have too much liquidity in there. I just want to make sure, yep, there's no questions so far, but there's thousands of not-for-profit agencies that can offer free financial analysis and free financial help. Now, myself and our firm, we specialize in people preparing for and in retirement. So I'm not a credit counselor. I don't want to presume that I am a credit counselor. There's counselors out there because some people need, a lot of guidance on their cash flow, and they might need someone to help them do that. And there's so many people out there that don't do that. A lot of them, they won't charge you a thing. They're not for profit. That'll just help you put in a better place in your specific situation. So make sure if that's you look for help, because free help or a second set of eyes is never going to hurt. Credit cards, they can be good for some things, but they can create a significant amount of long-term problems in your financial plan. Now, if you just spend here $14,000, okay, in credit cards for whatever that purchase may be, over time, that could cost you over $24,000 if you just paid the minimum payment, and that is actually over 31 years that you pay the minimum payment. That will cost you $24,000 at 18% interest. I mentioned before that hamster wheel, right? You never get out of that. The credit card companies, you keep on seeing commercials, all the perks, travel for free, get bonus points. How do they have all that money to pay for all these commercials when they're giving you all these things for free? Well, because what they don't tell you in the commercials is they actually bank on you not paying your full balance off every month. They actually want you to pay interest, and their interest rates are ridiculously high. 18, 20, 25%. This is showing you one at 29%. It would cost you an extra $34,000 on top of the $14,000 that you spent on whatever that purchase may be. So when I talk to individuals, and if you have credit card debt, make sure that's usually the first thing that you try to evaporate or get rid of as quick as possible, because it's a cancer, and that cancer is just going to be eating away at your financial goals day in, day out. But you have control to pay off that cancer, to wipe off that credit card debt, because you can either reduce your spending, you can allocate more funds to your credit card debt, and make sure that you have a balanced approach. Now, there's a few different methods that people have to pay off credit card debt. I'll just go over one of them. One of them is called the Snowball Method. The Snowball Method is basically you look at all your debt. Maybe you got a home mortgage, maybe you got a credit card, maybe you got a student loan, maybe you have a short-term interest rate or a car loan, and you look at the smallest loan that you have over all those different loans, and you pay that off first. You allocate any extra funds and you pay that off first. Then you look at the next one. The next one might be, only $300 or $5,000. You pay that one off first. And you go with your lowest debt and you pay that off one by one by one until you pay off all your debt. Now, that is a method. That's not usually what I like to recommend for people, because I want you to look at not which the smallest, if you have a $2,000 debt over here and a $7,000 debt over here, what if that $2,000 debt is only charging you at 9% interest, but that $7,000 debt is charging you 29% interest? Well, my method would be to pay the highest interest debt you have first. Put as much money as you can, because I don't know if you've invested in the market lately. I looked at your accounts. Yeah, they're up the last year. But if you look over time, there's nowhere that's going to guarantee you 29% every single year of growth. But you are guaranteed to pay 29% or whatever your credit card interest rate is from that credit card year in, year out. So instead of maybe investing even more in the 401k or buying other stocks that could go up and down, pay off that 20-some% credit card debt first, and then talk about how you can invest and reallocate those funds into the market, to your 401k, because that credit card debt can really hurt you dramatically if you do not pay it off. But I don't want to be all negative about credit cards, because if using credit cards wisely, One, it can build your credit. And building credit can help you get maybe a mortgage or a loan and get a lower interest rate that'll actually help you in the long term. Two, credit cards, if used wisely, can get you cash back. It can get you free trips. My kind of hobby is helping my clients and helping my friends travel for free using credit cards. Again, full disclosure, you got to pay off that credit card every single month for this to make sense. You never want any interest, but it's something that you could do to kind of benefit from. And, if you want to talk to me personally, we can show you. You got a dream vacation. We can try to get you there for free, maybe business class, and put you in a better place if you pay it off every month. Another benefit for sometimes using a credit card is, say you have a home remodel project. I know with the pandemic, a lot of people have done more home renovations. Instead of paying everything in cash up front, you might leverage a 0% credit card for 12 or 24 months that you pay no interest on, and you leverage those funds over a year or two. Granted, at the end of that year or two, you have to pay off that balance, but that can help you leverage your funds as well. So there is some perks to credit cards, but a lot of times people get themselves in credit card debt, and it's a kind of that hamster wheel they can never get out of. So make sure that you're looking at your credit card debt and trying to wipe that off if that's the case. But if you're using them wisely, you're probably already traveling and getting cash back, and good for you guys. But you can get credit counseling if you have some debt. There's some things that you can do is kind of, if you have a lot of debt, which I'm sure is not anyone on this the webinar today, but if you do have a lot of debt, you might want to looking into consolidating. Look at a credit counselor that can consolidate your debt so it's one low monthly payment. They reduce your interest rates because they realize you can't keep up with a 29% interest rate over time. They could eliminate your late fees and over limit fees. You could kind of use that for ongoing education. But there's a lot of things that they can do if you are in a very bad situation, that they can consolidate and make that manageable. But if you don't have that situation, now you want to look at your cash flow and see how can you allocate your excess cash flow to, maybe your 401k, getting free money. I know a few months ago I talked about a Roth 401k and how that can be beneficial for a lot of people. Maybe you put it to Roth. Maybe you're investing outside the 401k, or maybe you maxed out your 401k and now you're looking at other investment alternatives. We can talk about maybe section 7702 of the tax code. There's a lot of options you have, but make sure if you have debt, first and foremost, you can wipe that out. Now, some people ask me about, is a mortgage bad debt? Well, some people thought that having a mortgage can benefit you with your taxes, and for some people it can. But for most people, because they changed the laws and they have the higher standard deduction, that mortgage interest is not going to really benefit you from a tax perspective. But right now, we are historically low interest rates. So for many of us, if we have a 4 or 5% interest rate, it could make sense to do a refinance. But you got to run the numbers and see, hey, are you planning on staying in this home for a long time? Or do you want to sell within 3-5 years and maybe it doesn't make sense to do a refinance? But I am not a big fan of being in a rush to pay off your home mortgage right away, especially if you have a 2.5 or 3.5 interest rate. You don't need to pay that off right away. You can leverage those funds and allocate more to investments in your 401k that over time are going to perform way better than 3.5%, so that you're making money on the bank lending you money. Leverage your money more effectively. Sometimes people have, believe it or not, I've had people come in and they have, a 7%, interest rate over here, but they're like, we're putting more money a month to pay off our mortgage. Stop doing that. Pay what you need to pay on the mortgage and allocate those extra funds to the higher interest rate at 7 or whatever that percent may be, so you can pay off that debt quicker, and then just leverage that mortgage until the time comes where you do have it paid off. But I am not a big fan of being in a rush to pay off the mortgage, because that's good debt in my opinion. That's low interest rates. And if you're being wise and you're investing those funds, you're going to make 7-8%. Your interest is at 3.5. You're making 4% on the bank's money. Now, there is some people out there that they just are scared of investing. They have a lot of money in savings and checking, If you're not going to invest and you have your money in savings and checking, you're actually losing money to inflation, okay? Because that money is not making anything. And in that circumstance, if you definitely don't want to invest anything, then maybe you do pay off that 3.5% interest rate. But for most people, invest that money, have your money work harder for you. Don't get into credit card debt. Don't have a big debt that you can't, get out of. When you look at a new car, is it a need? Is it a want? Okay, do you really need that fancy car, or does it just get you to point A to B? If you look at a new house, do you need the 4 or 5 bedrooms and the big, game rooms and all this that goes with it? Or, do you need something maybe smaller, less property taxes, less to clean? What makes you happy? Some people love their house and they're just homebodies. Some people love to travel. Some people love other hobbies. You just got to make sure that you define for yourself what's going to make you happy and then set a goal to accomplish that. In life, sometimes we say, oh, what if I make a couple $100,000 or $100,000? And, then you hit that and you're like, okay, what if I can make more? It's not about how much you make. It's about how can you live the lifestyle that you want to live comfortably. And by defining that first, then everything else will fall into place. So I hope that this was beneficial from this topic. I hope I gave some different insight and at least 1 or 2 things that you can look at your finances and make some tweaks. I encourage everyone to know what your budget is, to know what your lifestyle funds are. This presentation, was one of SOFA's presentations that I gave, but with Network, we're trying to find, or they want to know from you, the employees, what are the topics that you care about? You care about Social Security, retirement planning, whatever it may be, college funding. We want to make sure that we tailor these to you in the future, because we are going to be giving these presentations over the next few months, over the next few years, to make sure that they keep on educating their employees, providing value to you, the employees, to put you in the best situation possible. So if there's a topic that you really like, please let your HR know so that they can actually get me to present that and make it as beneficial to you as possible. I just put an offer there. Basically, if you'd like some more information or your way to grade this presentation, to see how we can make improvements, to see if there's any information that we can reach out to you on in the future. This is, credit counseling is not what I do full time, but I do a lot of other things, but I can maybe even help you, put you in a good direction if you would like to talk. So I hope you found that beneficial. I'm just going to look real quick. If there's any questions, I can open up for Q&A a little bit here. I thank you for Lisa, Terrence, Rochelle, for saying that you can hear me. Brian, is there any questions or anything that I can address for you guys? Please feel free to tap in the chat. I'll give it a few minutes. And if not, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week and stay healthy. And summer and spring is right around the corner. So I'm excited for that. Don't see any questions coming in yet, and maybe it could be at a more personal level if you'd like to, but thank you again so much for having me, Network. Thank you for those of you that joined us this morning. Have a fantastic rest of the day and stay healthy, my friends. Take care.